Hello, my name is Jaleesa Burwell, and I'm the Sales and Marketing Associate at Charles Bridge. I'm excited to be here today with Shana Keller and Laura Freeman, the creators of CEECEE, Underground Railroad Cinderella, a powerful and visual stunning picture book. To begin, could each of you introduce yourselves and share a little bit about your background? Shana, you can go first.
Hi, my name is Shana Keller. I've been writing stories since, I don't know, like I was about 8 years old. I'm a mom of two. I have two daughters and two cats, and currently live in North Carolina.
Hi, my name is Laura Freeman, and I'm the illustrator of CEECEE, Underground Railroad Cinderella, as well as a lot of other children's books and magazine articles, illustrated magazine articles and newspaper articles as well. I grew up in New York City. For high school, I went to the School of Art and Design, and then for college, I went to the School of Visual Arts, where I got my BFA. I currently live in Atlanta, and I have two sons, but I only have one cat.
I have to say, it's such a pleasure to meet you guys. DC has been gaining attention lately. Not only is it a Junior Library Guild selected title, it's also received multiple star reviews from School Library Journal, Kirkus Reviews, and Publisher Weekly. CeECee is a powerful and thought provoking picture book that took a fairy tale retelling of Cinderella and tackled the harsh issues of slavery in the US while also smoothly weaving in rich elements of African culture and offering a message of hope through Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad. This first question is for the author, Shana. What inspired you to craft such a story? Can you share the story behind the story?
I would say the way this story came to me too was very multi-layered. It came in maybe three different parts. The first part was I saw a image of a black Cinderella, and that image just never left me. So that was one part of it. There was another time when I was working on another book, and I came across, I believe it was Nikki Giovanni, and she wrote a story about Harriet Tubman having conversations. And so she blended fiction, fact and fiction, which is what I love to do too. And there was a story or an anecdote in there where Harriet Tubman mentioned rescuing a young girl. And it was just that simple line. And then that line stuck with me. And then I read a lot of books from the 1800s, you could say, early 1900s. I just love to read those stories. And I came across an autobiography, and I wish I could tell you which one it was because I've read so many, I don't keep track of them anymore. But there was an actual story where an enslaved girl was ordered to sleep on the floor of the enslaver's daughter's bedroom because the daughters were scared. And so these all happened at different times, but eventually they somehow merged. And then it occurred to me when I started looking into Cinderella, I didn't know that story was over 2,000 years old. I just knew the Disney version, and I love the Disney version. But again, none of the stories I grew up with had a lot of people that looked like me. And so I was like, what would a young girl being forced to sleep on the floor of somebody else's bedroom listening to stories have thought about, and what possible story would they have been listening to? So that's kind of where the idea came from.
This next question is for both of you. How did you approach bringing this picture book to life? Just reading through it, we're able to tell it's not as simple as just another Cinderella story due to all the different layers and story threads involved. So, how did you approach bringing CeECee to life through words and through art?
When I read it, I thought of it not as a fictional story at all. I really felt like this is a true story because I'm sure this happened again and again in throughout history, through slavery. I have to say, when I first got your manuscript, Shauna, and I read it, I burst into tears. That last page, I have chills. Like when
Oh,
just thinking about it right now gives me chills. It's so beautiful. Your words are so beautiful. The story is so beautiful. And as soon as I read it, I was like, oh my God, I have to illustrate this story. I was so excited about it. So, one thing that was really important to me was that she not be like your typical victim Cinderella from all the traditional stories. I read a lot of fairy tales growing up, and it was, the victim being saved by the prince and the godmother. And I wanted CeECee to feel even though it was a sad story, especially in the beginning, I wanted her to be very defiant. And I was really careful in her expressions that she'd be heroic and binty. be heroic. So in every image, there isn't really one where she really looks woeful and pitiful. She looks more angry at a lot of points, and that was really important to me, that she be like so angry that she was going to get out of this situation. When the stepmother, the owner, is dragging her up into the attic, she's got a smile on her face because she's got a plan. She's purposely getting dragged up to that attic. She knows she's getting punished and that she's going to get out of this situation. So
when I saw her artwork for the first time, I see the sketches too, but then when I saw the artwork, those that one, and then the tea kettle one, where you just see this beautiful close up of her, and I just feel the intelligence and the determination in this, young girl's face and eyes. And she's like you said, she's not waiting around to be saved, but once she realizes she's going to do it, she's going to do it. And then my other absolute favorite image was of her in the actual attic. You just feel her envisioning, planning, thinking, and it's like, it just conveyed so much. Yeah. Honestly, I feel like Laura brought CeCeE to life, like when I saw the visuals, I was like, this is CeCeE, like without a doubt, without any hesitation.
Both of you have crafted this beautiful story that just resonates with like everybody. This is a deeply emotional story that's based off of our real history.
It's really neat to hear you say too, Laura, that it read like facts, not like fiction, because I did piece together, a lot of facts into it. And yeah, there was a young girl that was forced to sleep on the ground in a bedroom just because this other child was scared, and they would have listened to stories. And that was the first time I realized too, because, so much of our history hasn't been included in mainstream history. And it was like, yeah, they would have listened to stories. When you have children, what do? They eavesdrop on everything. They would have heard stories, and then it just makes you think, well, what would they have thought of those stories? Or would they have done anything with them? Because we always say, and we grow up knowing that stories are there to inspire us, to teach us, so we don't forget. And so then what would they have gotten from these stories?
I think this is great to go into the next question. Your book is definitely heavy. It touches on a topic that a lot of people have trouble having conversations around, especially with children. And I was wondering, for both of you, what challenges did you face in telling such a heavy and historically rooted story in a way that still feels appropriate, meaningful, and hopeful for children?
In my original manuscript, because of the abuse that was going on during slavery, I originally had included that CeCeE looked very much like the children of the house, the enslavers' children, because in most cases, they were all half brothers, half siblings. Karen, my editor, she let me keep it in there. And it wasn't until we came through, Karen and I talked about it, and it was almost like it's enough that the kids were very similar in age, and that CeCeE's skin tone wasn't that different from theirs. And so when we saw those similarities, we're like, Laura got it. We didn't even have to say anything. She did it.
Originally, I was making her much darker skinned, but the art director said, no, she should be light skinned.
So maybe they communicated. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I changed her.
Yeah, because originally they were half siblings. And then it was kind of like when I hear Frederick Douglass, but why? Why am I a slave and they're not,
Yeah.
And so that was a tough one. So we did end up taking that out of the story. She completely let me do that. She was going to keep it in there, but then I just had a chance to sit with it all. And, when people don't fight you on stuff, then you take a minute and you're like, you know what? This feels better. This feels more authentic, and it's more of an observation because it's not something anybody talked about. Right. It's just one of those, we all know who the dad is or whatever. And then the other aspect that was difficult to convey, which I think we did accomplish, was the abusive side of it, like the beatings or whatnot. And so when she's getting dragged up into the attic, that conveys a lot. And then even like Laura, when you mentioned, she has that little light of defiance, it's like, okay, that she knows what's coming, but she's not scared. She's going to get through it. How do we address abuse in a picture book? When we were talking about it, going back and forth a little bit on the editing side of it, it's like, no, she was beaten and locked in the attic, and we can just keep it straightforward. We don't have to go into gory details or anything like that. And then a kid's imagination will take them wherever it needs to take them. So, but those were two parts that I was very conscientiously aware of is this too much or is it not enough? Because I wanted to really convey those two elements, but then not overdo it without losing any of the initial meaning and purpose that we wanted behind it.
So, can you talk about the symbolisms or cultural references you included in the story, both visual and in the story itself? What were they and what do they represent?
I wanted to make sure that I used visual elements from the traditional Cinderella story. So you have the pumpkin and the mice in the attic. I felt like the prince was really important in the dream sequence where she's lying on the floor with the little girl reading the story. She's imagining the prince. It's not the European prince story that the little girl is reading and probably imagining, but CeECee's prince is an African prince, and he's coming for her, and she's making it personal to her. It's the Cinderella story, but it's CeECee's Cinderella story.
Karen and I talked about this as well. That was all Laura with the African prince, because there was no description of the prince at all. And what's crazy is I didn't even think about who she would be dreaming about, So this is a perfect example where the collaboration was just beautiful, And from the writing side, I did the same or tried to do the same thing where it was Benti represented the fairy godmother, the clock striking at midnight, that's the time that she would have to leave. And that's another one of those truths that I've used, because a lot of people would not escape, but they would sneak off the plantations at midnight. And usually either that was the point that they left, or that's when they would go to a midnight school to learn how to read so they could escape down the road, that kind of stuff. So even that tied in culturally, but also very neatly with the Cinderella stories.
All right, before we wrap up, I'd love to ask a fun question. Sticking to the theme of classic fairy tales, if you could step into any fairy tale world just for a day, which one would you choose and why? And it can't be Cinderella.
Beauty and the Beast, but it's not for the Beast, it's for her library. I would love to be able to spend a day in a castle like that with a library like that. That would just be amazing.
I gotta go with Cinderella. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's fine.
I felt, whenever kids get punished and you feel like you're being punished unjustly, whether it's justified or not, you feel like I don't deserve this. I'm being victimized. I can relate to her so much. You're making me clean my room. I'm like, I gotta
Well, I have to say, I could probably sit here and ask questions all day. I really love your stories, and I'm so grateful that you guys were teamed up for this. But I also know that our time's limited. So for our final question, what comes next? What are you working on, and what can we expect from you in the future?
There are 2 books that I'm really excited. I just handed in the final art on one about Dudley Randall, the poet and printer. I'm also just starting now. I'm in the middle of sketches for Kitty Black Perkins, the woman who designed the first Black Barbie. So that is so much fun. I'm really having a ball with that.
For picture books, the ones that I've been working on, they're not under contract, but it's another slavery period one where a young boy we watch his journey to the north, to freedom, because a lot of times you hear they went north, they went that, but then it's a very abstract idea. So I've pieced together, and it's rough right now, but that's where my heart is right now. But it's the actual steps that this young boy took to get to freedom. And then I tried my hand. We'll see. There's a fictional middle grade novel. So I tried to venture into the novel world. It's a middle grade, and it's a ghost story where a young girl meets her great grandmother, and it's she's on a treasure hunt, but the treasure she's looking for is not what she expected to find. And then I did too, which this one is out there too, a graphic novel, but that one is a nonfiction account of William and Ellen Craft, and also during slavery, and their escape 1,000 miles to freedom. I wrote it as a graphic novel, again, to try to get it in younger kids' hands, so they didn't have to wait till college to learn about all this, which is what happened to me. Those 2 are completed. The picture book is still being worked on, but it's hopefully it'll be out there.
It's truly been a pleasure meeting you both. Thank you for sharing your time, your process, and your hearts with us. Really, thank you. It's been a lot of fun. This has been such an insightful and inspiring conversation. CEECEE is not only a beautifully crafted book, it's an empowering and necessary story that honors history and encourages hope in even the youngest readers. To our viewers, I wholeheartedly encourage you to pick up a copy of CEECEE. Whether you're reading it with a child, sharing it in the classroom, or simply experiencing it for yourself, it's a story that will stay with you long after the final page. Thank you again, Shana and Laura, and thank you to everyone watching.